Madison Schlegel was in court all week, and she joins us again with 13 News legal analyst Ed Booth for more.
Yeah, we figured we'd bring in the experts to kind of flesh out the judge's decision here today. But Ed, you and I have spoken earlier today, and we've kind of delved into the details here. But the judge truly said that this came down to a question of law, and the jury is kind of the one to answer the questions of fact here. So do you mind giving us a little bit of insight of what that means, maybe for the layperson at home?
Sure, of course. So jurors are always the finders of fact, and judges decide the law. And in this particular case, the judge decided, based on the facts that have been presented, that she didn't need to let the jury consider any of those facts, didn't need to get into their credibility. She decided it solely on the law as she saw it and said there isn't enough for the jury to hear the case.
Right, and I think over the last couple of days, too, we've also heard some confusion in testimony in which the jurors were hearing, you know, that object of hearsay, those statements that were put on the record and then struck from the record. Do you think that maybe the confusion in which the questions that the judge answered also due to the questions that the jury had also may have played an impact in this?
Well, I think it's sort of a symptom of what was going on in terms of the judge's view of the prosecution. Now, in any kind of trial, there might be something that comes out and the judge says, well, jury, you're not to consider that. You've already heard it. We can't unring the bell, but it's not so serious as to declare a mistrial, but I'm going to give an instruction that says you're not to consider that fact. And it sounds like that happened here. That happens in a lot of cases.
Well, you mentioned the word mistrial, which we heard a motion towards yesterday, and both the defense and the prosecution had kind of agreed that that would be a motion that they both support here. And the judge ultimately struck that down. Do you mind giving us the difference of what a mistrial would be and then what we saw today, which was the judge striking down those charges?
Well, sure. A mistrial is when you have a structural error with a trial. Something's happened and it's bad enough to where you can't fix it with a curative instruction. We just have to start over and do this all again. It does happen. It's extreme. On the lesser side of things, you've got my example where the judge says, jury, you heard that, but I'm telling you, you're not going to consider it, and we're going to trust that they follow the law. So a mistrial is an extreme problem with the case that can only be remedied basically by doing it over again. In this particular instance, the judge has said these facts as put on by the Commonwealth don't equal a crime under this statute. So that's not a mistrial where we come back and do it again another day. That's an acquittal. In other words, it's a dismissal of the case.
And you said it would be rare for the Commonwealth to maybe file more charges on this.
Well, yes. I mean, you know, you've got double jeopardy, and that has to match up identically with the elements. But if you think about it, trying to charge a different crime based on the same operative facts, you know, even if legally you were able to shoehorn that in, you know, there are a lot of reasons not to do that, and the optics aren't great.
Right. Well, Ed, we appreciate you making yourself available to us not only earlier this afternoon, but here this evening. Connor, Janet, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much. And we're going to have more analysis of the ruling at 5:30. We had this breaking news live on air at 10 a.m. and also streamed on the 13 News Now app. Download the app on your phone or TV for our full trial coverage.